The last war between humanity and the Volari burned across 3 star systems. It ended with a silence, so heavy it felt unnatural, as if even the stars mourned. Captain Elias Kael, retired now, lived alone on a small homestead on the edges of Nova Eos, a lush, quiet planet untouched by the scars of war. He'd traded his combat armor for soil-stained gloves and his plasma rifle for a spade. But even as the wind brushed against the wheat fields, he could never forget her. Seris, the Volari pilot he should have killed, the alien who had instead saved his life. He'd last seen her 8 years ago on the ruins of Vega Prime, when the ceasefire broke through the chaos. His ship had crashed, his legs shattered, and enemy drones were closing in. Seris had found him first, her translucent, silver-blue skin gleaming under the burning skies, and instead of delivering the final shot, she had carried him to safety. "I don't know why I'm doing this," she had said, voice trembling. Maybe, because you didn't shoot first." They had spent 3 days hiding together in the ruins, waiting for extraction. 3 days of silence, fear, and strange understanding. When rescue finally came, they stood facing each other through the smoke and debris. Neither spoke the words forming in their throats. Neither forgot the other. Now, years later, Elias told himself he'd buried those memories. But on some nights, he still looked at the stars and wondered if she had survived, if she remembered him too. That question was answered one quiet evening when his perimeter alarms flared red. Something was descending from orbit, fast, unauthorized, and aimed directly at his coordinates. Middle, the return. Elias grabbed his sidearm out of instinct. The old soldier in him was still alive somewhere beneath the years of peace. A streak of silver fire tore across the dusk sky, and then a thunderous crash in the woods behind his home. He ran toward the impact zone, expecting wreckage, scavengers, or perhaps an old war relic reactivated by accident. What he found stopped his breath. A small Volari transport ship, badly damaged, smoke curling from its engines. And standing beside it, wounded, cloaked in the dim glow of emergency lights, was her. Seris? She turned at the sound of his voice. Her eyes, twin pools of molten gold, widened. "Elias Kael," she whispered, in that same melodic tone he remembered. "You're alive." He holstered his weapon slowly, unable to process it. "I could say the same about you." She swayed, exhaustion overtaking her, and he caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was colder than he remembered, her pulse faint. "I had to find you," she murmured before losing consciousness. Elias carried her back to his cabin, heart pounding like it had in his soldier days. As he patched her wounds, he noticed the marks, fresh burns across her arms, plasma scoring on her armor. Someone had been chasing her. When she woke hours later, she explained, the Volari weren't at peace anymore. A new faction, the Sovereign Clade, had seized control of the old fleet. They wanted to reignite the war, to finish what was started. Seris had defected, trying to warn humanity, but was shot down before she could reach command space. "I thought they'd find you," Elias said quietly. "You shouldn't have come here." "I had nowhere else," she said, voice trembling. "You were the only human I knew who saw me as more than a monster." For a long moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the generator and the crackle of the fire. He poured her a drink, tea, not the kind of harsh rations they once shared, and she smiled faintly, hands shaking as she accepted it. "You still make tea the same way," she said, a small laugh escaping her. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." The warmth between them grew in the quiet moments that followed. But beneath it lingered the shadow of what was coming. Seris's warning wasn't just a message, it was a death sentence. If the sovereign clade knew where she'd gone, they'd come. And they'd bring war with them. Middle, fire in the sky. Elias didn't sleep that night. He spent hours tuning his old defense grid, relics of a life he swore he'd left behind. Drones, plasma turrets, and encrypted transmitters he'd hidden from the authorities. Seris helped him, though her movements were slower, more fragile than before. "Your species rebuilds even when it hurts," she said quietly as she reconnected a power relay. "Valari, we forget how to start again." Elias looked up from his tools. "Maybe that's why you came to me." She hesitated, her golden eyes softening. "Maybe I came to remember." By morning, the scanners picked up something at the edge of the atmosphere, 3 clade interceptors hunting. Elias swore under his breath. "They found you." "No," she said, standing beside him. "They found us." The words hung heavy in the air. He tried to contact the nearest outpost, no response. The clade were jamming communications. So, Elias did what he had always done best, prepared for a fight he couldn't win. As the ships descended, Seris took position beside him, wearing his spare exosuit, a human one, ill-fitting but functional. Her voice was calm but resolute. "You don't have to fight," he told her. "Yes, I do. You saved me once. Let me return it." When the first clade troopship landed in the fields, the battle began. Plasma bolts lit up the sky, drones whirring through the smoke. Elias moved like a man possessed, guiding automated turrets, taking shots with a precision honed by decades of instinct. Beside him, Seris fought with alien grace, her energy blades carving arcs of light, her movements faster than his eyes could follow. But there were too many of them. The clade soldiers pressed forward, and soon the cabin was in flames. Elias dragged Seris behind a wall of debris. "We're not going to hold this line." Seris looked at him and smiled sadly. "Then I'll make sure you do." Before he could stop her, she sprinted into the open, her armor crackling with unstable energy. She slammed her palms into the ground, and a wave of blinding light erupted, vaporizing the first line of attackers. "Seris," he shouted. The explosion threw him backward. When the light cleared, she was still standing, barely, her armor smoking, her breathing shallow. He ran to her, catching her as she fell. "Why would you do that?" "Because," she gasped, eyes dimming, "I never forgot you, Elias. Not one day." Then darkness. Ending. The meaning of survival. Elias woke hours later in the ruins of his home. The clade ships were gone, destroyed or retreated. He couldn't tell. Smoke hung thick in the air. He found Seris lying where she had fallen, her chest rising shallowly. Somehow, impossibly, she was still alive. He carried her inside the remnants of his shelter and stabilized her with what little medtech he had. Days passed. The fires burned out. When she finally opened her eyes again, she smiled weakly. "Still alive." "You're not getting rid of me that easily," he said with a faint grin. She laughed softly, a sound he hadn't realized he missed. Later, as she recovered, he rebuilt what was left of the cabin. They worked side by side, silent, comfortable, bound by something that went beyond words or war. "I warned your people," Seris said one evening, watching the sunset bleed across the fields. "They'll know about the clade now. They'll stop them." "Then you did it," Elias said. "You ended the war before it began." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "No, we did. Humans and Valari together. Like it should have been." He chuckled softly. "You talk like a diplomat now. Maybe I learned from one." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the stars shimmered above them, the same stars they had both once fought under. Seris turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I left Vega Prime, I thought I'd never see you again. But something in me refused to forget. I told myself if I ever found peace, I'd find you. And now, he asked. Now, she said, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the twilight. I think I finally did. Elias reached out and took her hand. It was warm again, alive, real. They sat there, a human and an alien, survivors of a war that should have divided them forever. Yet somehow, in a universe built on conflict, they had found something rarer than peace. They had found each other,